Hello, guys. Here's a quick intro for all you guys. After a little bit of a hiatus, welcome back to another episode of the Strongman Winner Circle podcast. I'm your host, Nicholas Canby. This is episode 58 and round 2 with Dan Hughes, the newest World's Strongest Man, 105 kilo. Let's catch up on everything comp prep, competition, and more, and also overall observations of the official Strongman Games. I will also kind of talk about my thoughts on the official Strongman Games, so tune in to listen to us on today's episode of the Strongman Winner Circle podcast. Dan, welcome back, Dan. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing well, too. Thank you for asking. But this is not really round 2. I think this is maybe round 6, but in terms of individual Dan, this is round 2.
It's the second time I've been on for winning something.
Yes, exactly. So it's great to have you back. How are you feeling after the big win at 105 kilos?
Physically, I feel very healthy. I celebrated pretty hard last week, so we're this is the second weekend since it's happened. So this week's been treating my body a little bit better. I have been back in the gym some, but so physically, I feel actually really good, especially considering coming off a competition like that. Mentally, it's still it ebbs and flows on whether it's sunk in or not. Luckily, I have a pretty good gym family here. They continue to remind me that I'm a world champion, which isn't something that I really thought would happen. So I'm just trying to accept it, soak it in. Haven't thought too much more of what competitively anyway, what's past this week, just trying to soak it in. Once it finally sits, I think I will feel a little bit better. But it's weird waking up in the morning. Still got my trophy. I haven't set up my trophy case yet in this new house. So my trophy's just kind of sitting out, not normally where it would be. And I just see it and I'm like, damn, that's crazy.
Is that a coffee table, dinner table, bathroom table?
It's like on a side table. It's a shelf I built in the living room that I kind of just set when I got back from Charleston. I set it there. And it just kind of stayed there. In fact, Nat even decorated Christmas decorations around it. So it kind of just looks like a centerpiece.
Well, as long as it's there for everybody to see once they come through the door, I think that's all really matters. So, Dan, I wanted to kind of start the OSG journey for you to kind of comment and tell everybody your thoughts and feelings and more from maybe after ASM. So prior to ASM, you were running through the 105 scenes with a few good podiums, second at OSG last year, a second and third at Clash, the 2022 and 2023. ASM wasn't quite your contest, but a lot of times it takes a little bit of a kind of a setback in order to go even further. So tell us in terms of after ASM in July.
Yeah. So ASM, placing wise was my worst placing. I think I got 7th, I believe. Worst placing since like 2021 in any competition, including amateur ones. And but my performance, I think, went as well as prep did. So it wasn't like it wasn't one of those shows where, I just made some terrible mistake and it really set me back. Like the lineup at ASM was very tight. I think there's 12, 13 of us. A lot of shifting around in points. The guys who beat me, they beat a Dan that didn't really make that many mistakes. I just wasn't as prepared as they were for it. So it was, I think it's easier to come off of a loss like that when you've made a mistake of just like, well, I'm better than that. I'm better than them. I just messed up like on that one thing. I think we've all had competitions like that where it's like, if I would have done that one thing different, like I could have won or I could have podiums or whatever. ASM wasn't like that for me. I thought I had the 430 at Hand Farmers. I had it in training, and that was really my biggest disappointment. Leaving that, because everything else, it went about how I thought it was going to go.
But you still walked away with a world record, correct? You guys all tied.
Yeah, I shared world record with Kevin Candido and Jeff. I believe it's just the 3 of us. We all got 400. Jeff actually beat me by a couple feet. I got 2nd overall in that event. Jeff beat me by a couple feet at 430, but none of us completed 430. But yeah, everybody, like, I remember, and even my wife said that weekend, Natalie was like, "You don't seem as upset as I would have expected you to be after this." And I was like, I respect everybody who beat me. Like, the 6 guys who beat me, they just outperformed me. As simple as that. I didn't make a mistake. Like, I made mistakes in prep, obviously, that led me to that position. But no, it was just one of those, like, I clearly just need to prep better.
And 3 of them ended up being at this OSG, right? With Burley,
Yeah, well,
Soka,
I
and
think
Jeffrey.
the math is the 5 out of the top 7 at ASM that were in the top, or that competed at OSG, were also in the top 7 at OSG. Does that make sense? Did I say that
So
right?
top 5 at ASM, or top 7 at ASM. 5 of the top 7 at ASM were at the top 7.
Yeah. So not in the same order,
OSG.
obviously, because I was 7th at ASM. I was first year. Jeff
Yeah.
won ASM. He's 3rd. You have Burley.
Bert was 4th and 4th? Was he 4th?
Burley was, I think, 6th. I think Burley was 1 or 2 ahead of me.
All right.
Because
And then
Justin,
we forgot Hein.
yeah, Hein was 3rd at ASM. He was up there. Trying to remember the placings for all of them, but I know as far as the top 7 at ASM, the only 2 that weren't at OSG in the top 7 were Justin Loy, who didn't compete, and Zach McCarley, who didn't compete.
Yes, that's right.
But so I think that's a testament to how competitive ASM is. As someone who's competed in it, and I know you have as well multiple times and won it multiple times, you know how competitive ASM is. But
7 ASMs.
yeah, well, you've won it twice.
Yeah, it's okay. I like being there 7 times better. So when did you start your prep for OSG? Were you 12 weeks out? Did you initially plan on doing OSG when you were coming off?
So we knew I was going to do it, or I should say we were fairly confident. And when I say we, I mean Terry and my wife. Like, so we were planning on it. We didn't fully commit until probably end of August, early September, when we confirmed that it was going to work with my school schedule, because like school's a priority right now. And so we were just making sure that was going to be feasible. But we knew after getting out of the Army in August and moving up to Cincinnati that was going to be the next competition, as long as it, was going to work out. As far as actual deliberate comp prep, I think it was 8 or 9 weeks that I started training events, but everything that Terry and I worked on since September did have OSG in mind. So even my off season, which I had a good like month or 2 of off season, but that was still, kind of all the training there was definitely contributed to my comp prep for OSG.
So tell us about the comp prep. So I would watch, and I thought you had very smooth training. Like, it doesn't seem like you had any mistakes. You didn't really have any days where you were over fatigued and you couldn't really do the workout. And even on all your bag throws, like for instance, when I train bags, of course, not my best event, I wasn't even I usually just do 1 bag, but it looks like you were just trying to improve your time of all 6 sandbags every time you went out there. So I feel like, again, a testament to your throwing abilities. But yeah, tell us, within those 8 or 9 weeks, did it look as easy as you posted on training, or did you have some difficulties in there?
As far as comp prep go, I would say it was like compared to anyone I've had before, I would say it was the smoothest. I'm not traveling multiple times a month like I was for the last 2 years. I'm not living in and out of hotel rooms. So that was a huge help. And I've known that has always affected my prep. I didn't realize how much it was until like that was no longer a variable. And so like no real injuries that aches and pains like normal, but no crazy injuries that I had to train around. I believe fatigue management was done really well between me and Terry communicating, and Justin with my diet, with how we refed and how we adjusted the diet the last couple of weeks for my kind of peak week and stuff. But it was probably the best prep I've ever had. I'm trying to think of, I mean, there was times, don't get me wrong, there's times where I was sitting in the gym and had to do another set or another run of an event after setting it up by myself that I'm just like, I don't want to do this. Like, this sucks. I feel dead. This isn't going to go well.
So was that the Go Ruck Medley or was that other events?
Well, the Go Ruck Medley, there was never a time where I said I wanted to do it, but it was usually the ones like the frame to Denny Stone, and it wasn't the event itself. It was that one took the longest out of anything to set up, and so that one was always really discouraging when I had to do that, just especially if it was late at night. And I mean, I'm just complaining. This is a problem that everybody has when they're training by themselves. But like Kevin and Derek and other people at the gym at RTS, they would help with that, and that was a huge, not just a physical help, but it was a huge mental boost because I've been training alone for so long when I was on the fitness team that like there was times where my weakness won out, and it was just like I'm too exhausted to do this, and I'm not gonna set up this, taking shortcuts and stuff like that. Unfortunately, this time I had I had a support group at the gym and out of the gym that helped me when I was really low, still push through, because the physical pushing through is easy. Like in a set, that's easy. That's everybody who's at this level does that. But regardless of how strong you are, we all have weak moments, and so it was nice to finally have like a support group full time. That was always there to help me out, even when I'm sitting in the corner pouting because I don't want to put 750 pounds on the frame, which because all my frame training was just a Rogue Hex bar the entire time.
What was the heaviest you worked on the frame going to competition?
I did 2 runs of 750.
So was that like 50 feet back, 50 and 50, or did you do like
no? I did 50 and 25, but coincidentally, I didn't know this was going to be this. I did train when I did comp weight, as well as some other sub comp weight events for the frame to Denny Stones. I practiced with the sprint back instead of just doing it right next to it, which I know doesn't make a huge difference. But there was a lot of groans, I think, when they announced that in the rules meeting. And I was like, Nat looked at me and she was like, "Is that bad?" And I was like,
"Was that the hour and a half rules meeting?"
Yeah. Yes. That was the fun. All rules meetings are super fun all the time.
What about your Go Ruck training? Did you get the Go Ruck actual bag, or were you training on a different bag?
So I had the Go Ruck bag. I did not buy it. I got it. I already had it, and the reason I laughed is I was actually selling it because I had it for work related reasons from my last job, and I was like, I'm never gonna use this. Like, why? I'm getting out of the Army. I don't need to practice ruck training. I don't compete in CrossFit, and I had it on the Facebook Marketplace, and then they announced it, and I was like, well, never mind. I guess I am going to use this at least for another couple months. So I did have that. I just had the 45-pound plate, so I still had to put extra weight in it to get to 100 pounds.
What was did you actually train competition weight?
I did. So every time I did it, regardless of what the bags and the sled weight I was doing, I always had 100 pounds in my pack. Because I figured, one, it makes it a little bit harder, but I don't think it's that much more fatiguing as far as like the extra stress it puts on your body for the volume of just carrying it. And I felt like it was going to be more of a comfort thing. And getting used to that extra weight, just like when we would train or when we'd ruck in the Army, like everybody has the same weight on it. It's just who's the most comfortable with that weight as they're walking around in the woods and stuff. So the only way to get better at carrying 100 pounds is to carry 100 pounds on your back in that context. That's obviously not the same for like all lifts. So I wore 100 pounds every single training video I posted, whether I was doing 80% bag weight and sled weight or 100%, I always had 100 pounds in the bag. And I think that just made me really comfortable. And I remember because they did have the newer versions at the actual competition. And I remember when I put it on, and because it didn't have extra like 25-pound plates bouncing around in there, it felt like I was glued to my back, and I just felt like it was Like it was just comfortable. I felt like I just weighed an extra 100 pounds, and not that I had 100 pounds on my back. So I think that aspect of training definitely helped for the event.
All right, excellent. But yeah, overall, I thought you had one of the better trainings going in there, and especially dedicating, of course, all your time after ASM to OSG, or again, there's no other kind of events other. Of course, there's other competitors that competed a couple of times, but OSG sometimes is who comes the best prepared, and of course, physically fit, because it's. I think one of the challenges, and of course you can speak to this too, you go into OSG and it's at the end of the year. A lot of times at the end of the year, a lot of individuals start getting beat up, little injuries start popping out, little nicks and knacks and dings in there. So a lot of times who can come in there the healthiest, who can come in there prepared and also peaked, which is very important. You want to speak anything in terms of peaking methods that you would like to share to the listeners?
Well, to the first part of your point, like leading up,
It's not my question.
Well, the first part of your question is like, I guess competing too much, or like coming in too fatigued at the end of the year. And one thing that is, as I mentioned, with how much I've had to travel for work over the last 2 years, it's forced me to be very selective with the competitions I've done. So especially for the last 3 years, like I've only done 3 or 4 competitions max in a year. And I love competing and I love to do more, but it was always just unreasonable, especially at kind of the level that I'm at now, to compete. And I don't want to just compete for the sake of competing and then have a bunch of middle of the pack placings, you know. But now that that's no longer the case, I mean, going forward, I like to compete more, but I think that does help me for a show like OSG, where it's the end of the year, but I've still only competed. That was my 3rd competition in the year. And there's reasons for that. It's not like I've just been sitting on my ass the whole year, but I think doing the deliberate off-season training allows you to have a healthier peak. So many people go from prep to prep to prep, and they're just mitigating injuries all the time. But Terry and I like address those injuries when we have the time in the off season. Like when you're in prep, you can mitigate it and you get through the show. If you're in off season, you can actually address the issue and not just the symptoms, fix it, and then hopefully start a prep healthy. But I think so many people start preps already behind the curve as far as like how good they feel physically, and they're just perpetually in a state of where like they can't peak. They may peak compared to what they were a month ago for those events, but like they're always performing suboptimally because their body's always fighting for recovery. And generally those people are like so used to it that they won't admit it. Because they're like, no, I feel great. And it's like, no, you just feel like the way you've always felt. You don't know what great feels like because you're always in such a high state of fatigue. And I did that in the Army for so long, not even related to competing, but just like you feel like shit, and so you're spread so thin all the time that that's just your normal. And then like I didn't realize how much that was the case until I've got out. I've been out for like 4 months, and I'm just like, is this happiness?
So I always like to talk about kind of peaking because I think that's probably the most important. Sometimes you can not only peak for competitions, but even peaking for certain events in life. But it's a lot of kind of focus in terms of being well rested. But in the context of OSG, I was watching a lot of preps. I know, of course, OSG is very important, but for individuals that never been to OSG, I saw a lot of individuals going way over comp weight, kind of overtraining, and then coming into the competition a little flat. And I think just with a 6-day contest, it's not only as physically grueling, but mentally grueling. We're in there for 10 hours a day. So it's really sometimes the battle of who can, who can be mentally tough throughout those 3 days, especially a lot of the individuals traveling from overseas or just traveling general. I think West Virginia wasn't an easy. It was still, even from Boston, West Virginia, was still kind of a 6 or 7 hour flight time for myself, which is almost as far as Europe. So, again, all different kind of aspects in that sense. So peaking does matter, guys. So train with OSG to train I was to train a little less and just focus on just being the best self come game day. I always say you got to be kind of the best version of yourself. So whatever you need to do in order to get to that point. But let's get to the competition, Dan.
Mhm.
So before we get to the point, I didn't make a little graphic for this, so I'm sorry the other 105 kilo competitors, but I wanted to talk about the other 105 kilo competitors.
Ooh, my
But
favorite.
some notable guys, of course, especially kind of making the finals. Of course, you have Manuel coming there, so he was the
Yep.
two-time ultimate champion. So I think a lot of people had him as potentially the favorite. I had you as my favorite because you're my favorite. But of course, you had John Almeida making the finals. I thought he was going to have a great performance, but with just the stacked lineup, I thought might have been somewhere in the top 12. But coming into
Yeah.
third, going into day 3 was, I think, a huge accomplishment. So he should be very proud of himself.
Yes, he should.
Right.
And that's why I told him that after the show. I know he's beat up because I know he really wanted a podium spot. I mean, who doesn't? But I think he's probably a little bit harder on himself than he should have been. And I talked to him afterwards, and I told him that like he's so young and he has so much potential. And I know he's worked really hard to earn that spot, and I know it's coming. Like he might not be next year, it might be next year, but I know it's coming. And I just told him keep his head up, keep pushing, because I know he turned a lot of heads. Because I think the few of us who were at OSG that competed at the last clash, knew who he was, and we knew that he was going to do well. But I know a lot of people were just like, who is this guy coming out of nowhere? But I think he should be very proud. I'm proud of him, how he performed. I think he did very well.
He did a great job, and he had a great prep going into it.
Mm-hmm.
I had a feeling that Burley was going to do well. It was good events for
Mm-hmm.
him. He usually, every time he competes, he's somewhere between he's usually kind of the top 5. So
Yeah.
kind of very similar to Hein. Hein is anywhere between, I think that every contest he's done, he's anywhere between 3 and 6.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Burley's pretty much in the same fashion. Of
Yeah.
course, we saw Burley for the first time at USS Nationals, not knowing who he is, and then coming in and taking 5th at Clash, taking 5th at OSG last year.
Yeah.
So of
And
course,
then I think 5th or he's like 6th or 5th at ASM as well.
So Burley is a bright future in front of him, and so does Alex Sokup. Of course, he came in, of course, turned a lot of heads last year. So coming in with that experience, and I think being there, for the first time and then competing again is a huge advantage. You know what to expect. You know how to time up your warm-ups, which is a huge aspect.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Jeff did very well for first time doing OSG since 2017, but he did have some idea of what to expect, and he's kind of a seasoned competitor. He's a
mature enough competitor that he knew what to expect. He's a.
So you had the Irishman Matthew McKeegan, of course, Hines up there. You have Isaac, who's a former, of course, runner-up back in 2018. Tim Murkowski, he's been kind of on the scene, but of course, he was able to kind of break into the top 10. Philip Brinkman, of course, the Arnold Amateur winner, of course, coming in just 11th, and of course, I felt gutted for him, but I've been in that situation, taking 11th and not making the finals.
That's a rough spot.
I think it's something that everybody's doing, but of course, I think it's also a testament to. I think you got to look back. Even though you took 11th, there was 42 guys in your weight class, so you still beat 31 guys that wanted to compete for the title of World's Strongest Man, 105 kilos. So I think that's what you got to remember at the end of the day, that you were still up there. And again, continue that. You don't get married to the outcome. Continue that process, and you're going to be right there. And then some other kind of notable guys, of course, Tyson Morrissey coming all the way from Australia. I think he might have had maybe would have broke into the top 10 if I think he tore his hamstring and training.
Yeah, so I was talking to him about it.
Training too, right?
Yeah, so he tore his hamstring, I think like 5 or 6 weeks out, maybe even a little less than that. Then he kind of nurtured it back, trained around it type thing. And then I think it was I don't know if it was the deadlifts or it may have been the frame Denny's, but I know he came back and he was hobbling, and he said he just retore it. And I know he finished all 4 events, but you could see it was bothering him. So that was unfortunate.
The one guy I also wanted to mention too was I got, of course, Blake Lawrence. He came all the way from South Africa, and unfortunately, we didn't really get to see him compete. So he took, I think, somewhere around top 7 back in 2017, and first time coming back since then. He's the current deadlift world record holder at 105 kilo. I think he has something somewhere around 920 on the deadlift, which is pretty insane. But he came in with an absolute flu, so we really didn't get him to see what he could have really done, 100%. But of course, I hope he comes back next year. And then other notable guys, of course, you have Sean Shoemaker still winning events, especially the deadlift.
Winning deadlift events.
He didn't wear a belt again, right?
No, he did use straps, and I think I made fun of him for wearing straps. I was like, wow, what an idiot. You wear straps for an 800-pound deadlift, which obviously is a joke. It's incredibly impressive what he did.
You have a guy like Stephen Bradley who took 6th back in 2021. I think he was top 12 last year. He didn't have, of course, the best competition, but he's another kind of great deadlifter. And then there was also an individual, like, of course, I met guy who took 13th was Jagger. Of course, I met him. I'm sorry if I butchered your pronunciation, but I thought he had a great comp, and I think he had a great build. So I'm excited to see him coming back. And then there's an individual, Thomas Owens. He came in between Emmanuel Pascari and McKeegan back at the OSG Europes. So I think he might potentially have a bright future as well. So those are kind of some highlights. Of course, Aisha, but overall, it was being 42 individuals in the 105 kilo class. I think is one of the most people that we've seen compete for the 105 kilo title. So first event, the press medley, going from all the way from the barbell to the circus dumbbell, yoke and block. How did you finish? Did you end up getting the yoke?
I did not get the yoke. So I got, I think, 12th overall on this. And that was just because I had the fastest time to hit the first 2. So I think because I hit 300 twice relatively easily backstage. And this was when we still thought we were going to be doing 325 or 322 or whatever the yoke was going to be. So I felt comfortable with it. And then afterwards, after I failed the 300 a couple of times, I thought about it. I think watching the video, I just set my bar too high.
Interesting.
And so to be clear, the judges and promoters put it at the height that I asked them to. It was not set at the wrong height. It was just, I told them the wrong height because you can see I couldn't get any leg drive out of it. I mean, it was already super shaky, and I know other people struggled with it, but I was wondering, like, in the moment, I was like, why can't I get my legs aren't doing anything? And it's the first event of the weekend, so it's not like I was gassed, but I think it was just a little high. So when I tried to dip, I couldn't get as low as I need to get that, drive out of it. Coming out of it, obviously not super stoked with the 12th place finish on a press event. But it was supposed to be my worst event and was my worst event. So it was kind of like, well, that's done. Everything else is uphill from here because I know I'm going to crush everything else. And so it was whatever. Maybe I try not to sulk at all about any events. And I think I do a pretty good job about it. Like, good or bad, try not to sit in it because that doesn't help me.
Natalie wasn't collecting your tears after this event?
No. It's funny.
Gypsy tears?
Her and other people, because it wasn't a secret. People knew that I wasn't like stoked about my performance on it. But people are like, you can tell they're kind of timid and scared to like, does he want to talk? And I'm just like, you guys can talk to me. It's fine. Like, that was always going to be my worst event. I wasn't going to win that event. I mean, in prep, I was getting it at comp weight. So like, I knew I did expect to finish it. So it was a little bit of a knock to my ego, I think. And I was like, well, that didn't go quite how I expected.
But I know you got some good work on the block, but isn't it kind of nuts when you put all that work in and you don't even get a chance to get to
It is. And that's like, in hindsight, it's frustrating. It's like all the times I set up the yoke or the full medley by myself. And I'm just like, man, I did that just to finish the first 2. And that was it. Granted, I finished the first 2 very quickly, but But
Now, what did you think of the anchor yoke? Do you think it's a good event that should come back, or you think it's a little too almost like it's like an implement that you need to almost have in order to be good at it? Do you think it's a worthwhile event to keep at a World's Strongest Man level contest?
I think it's a pretty good equalizer as far as like most events people have access to, or at least can get access to it. I think aside from maybe some of the Australians, no one was able to actually practice on that yoke. Um, I don't know. Like personally, I didn't enjoy it. I thought it was really shaky, but at the same time, it's like probably a pretty good test of overhead
Did
pressing
you
ability.
did you train on a Tsunami Bar leading up to the prep?
I did not train on a
Oh
Tsunami.
well, there you go, Dan. No
Yeah.
Tsunami Bar, no,
Well, exactly.
no.
Yeah. So I guess final answer is like I do think it's a pretty good. It's a great equalizer of overhead pressing ability because it's one thing to just be able to strict like I can strict press a 300-pound barbell, but the 300-pound anchor yoke was like a totally different animal. And I know you got it. You just
But
about got the block, but
they actually lowered the lowered to us, so it ended up being 332 instead of 370. I think it
okay.
probably would have took a little more time, but knowing it was 332, I kind of just went in, just
Yeah.
shoot for the fast three. But on block, I had every intention of hitting that. And when I went to the block, I think the one mistake I made was I was a little too knee heavy. So made the
Yeah.
block going backwards, but then I kind of readjusted, but then the block was very slippery. So it literally just slipped out of my hands, and then it was a tough re-clean. But in the end, I was doing like I was watching my metrics or just like the time. So I was in like if I hit the block, I would have been around 45 seconds. I think I still would have been the slowest of four, and then I was the fastest of three. So my placing of fourth wouldn't have changed. So that ended up being my best event. Ooh, surprise! But just one of those things where I was hoping to get the most points. But you know, one of those things there too. Like they the day before they talked about the leader shirt being the yellow. I'm like, that's a pretty cool shirt to wear. I was like,
Yeah.
I wanted one of those. You got one of those, right?
No, I didn't. I have a gold trophy that says World's Strongest Man, but I don't have a yellow shirt.
You never got a leader shirt? Were you first going into that? You were in first going into the stones,
I
right?
was in first for 3 events. The last 3
Oh,
events I
they
was in
did,
first
but
for.
they didn't give it to you.
Well, I was a leader for the last 3 events, but my understanding is the shirt was if you won an event.
Oh, I thought it was if you're in first. I thought you were if you're in first place.
That's how they do it in CrossFit. I may just
Oh,
misunderstood and didn't go get one.
all
Regardless,
right.
I don't have a gold shirt. I thought it was for if you win an event because like who was it? Somebody in my class who was never in first place overall was wearing a gold shirt with their name on it.
Oh, interesting. All right. I
And
think
that's
I
why
missed.
I just thought it was if you won the event because like I know Emmanuel had it because he won the press, and so he
Yes.
had one for that. But by the time we got to, it may have even been before the Go Ruck, but I know I was first going into the Go Ruck by like 2 points, I think. So, but no, I don't have a gold shirt.
Interesting.
Just a
Maybe I
trophy.
misunderstood, but let's get Dana Gold Strip one of these days. Grip event. So you had 740, 740,
750.
750
Yeah.
going into the Denny handles.
Yep.
What do you think? Did you like that frame? What do you think of the skinny handles?
Skinny handles were less for me, the skinny handles were less of an issue than just the adjustable handles being kind of like shaky. But like when I grabbed it, obviously my grip is pretty good, so I wasn't too worried about dropping it because of grip. But you see in the video, I almost dropped because it was just like I was wobbling so much side to side. So that kind of caught me off guard. But I mean, I would still do that event again. I think it was a good event. The stones are a good equalizer just because of how it's not just grip, it's not just speed of moving, it's shakes your body in like a 360 degree, especially with those cast stones. It's even different than just training with the plates that I think we all train with. So I thought it was a great event.
Do you think frame is harder than farmers?
For me, frame has always been much easier than farmers, and I know that's not the case for everybody. Like I I had an 800-pound frame well before I ever did 400 a hand. Like probably like a year or two before I ever did 400 a hand on farmers.
Interesting.
Yeah. I'm also faster with it.
With the frame?
With a frame, yeah.
I think looking back at it, I started doing the frame training or going pretty heavy after I came back from Italy, and I realized that I was undertrained on it. So I had to. So I was originally, because on grip events, I've either taken so far in the open, I've only taken second or first. So I was really hoping for a big result in this because I wanted to at least finish day one, at least in the top 3 spots. So ended the day one with 6. So when I got to when I in training, I was 750 was the heaviest I did, but that was a little tough. So I knew that 790 was going to be a challenge. But the Denny handles was already lights out for me. So I was able to make up a lot of time by running back and going with the Denny handle, and then I clipped my back of my heel, and my foot just started getting unswollen like 2 days ago from it. So it wasn't too bad at the contest, but of course coming back home, it swelled up a little bit. But overall, I thought that was a fun event, and like you said, something that I would like to do again. And then Dan, what did you think of your first run on a deadlift ladder?
Oh man, that was awesome. I mean, it went just about how I expected it to. Never pulled on an elephant bar. I knew I was going to be able to do the first 4 bars, no issue without straps. So I knew that was going to help me a lot, especially I got to go towards the end. I was in the final heat for the deadlift ladder, so I knew exactly what I had to do. I knew that doing the 800, like I would try the 800, but that wasn't really like I probably wasn't going to beat McKeegan and Shoemaker on it. So,
were you the fastest through 4?
Yeah, I got third on that. 2 people got 800, and I beat everybody else who didn't get the 800. So third, I just gripped and ripped all 4 of them. I knew it wasn't going to be. It was way faster than I did in training, but I knew that, and just because I don't have 5 bars or 4 bars to train with in training, and so I blitzed through the first 4, slowed down, tried to catch my breath, which actually probably hurt me. I feel like in hindsight, watching the video, like with how easy 765 came off the ground, probably just sprinting to the 800 and just trying to rip it off probably would have been better. But instead, I got it maybe an inch off the ground, and then when it started to become a grind, I was like, not worth it, because I knew that, like, I knew McKeegan and Sean were not ahead of me in points, so I was like, whatever. I was like, I got another event after this. So you see, I don't try very hard at all to do the 800. It didn't fly up, so I was like, okay, deuces. I'm gonna go for this go Ruck.
I gotta look back, but hopefully official strongman will put up like the whole every weight class like they did like the thing last year. They did a nice like kind of recap. So yeah, I look forward to kind of look back at that. I'm still going through some tape. Now we'll go on the dead. So the deads was probably my best executed event. Of course, my goal was to rip the first 3 because even in other years, first 3 for the open heavyweights was always good points, but I think this was the first year where you really had to hit the 4th in order to get really good points. So I knew that I was going to go first rip the first 3. I ended up not able to fit into a suit. My old suit was too small. The new suit was the new suit I couldn't break in time, so I went raw. And then the 815 was a 30-pound PR for myself. So yeah, I was of course very proud, but I hitched, I pound stoned that but and then lost some hair on my knee, but that was all part of the game. So I was pumped on that. And I knew 855 wasn't there, but you know what? I think maybe 850 could be happening if I run a pretty good training. So I'm proud of my static progress. Go Ruck, number 4, the event that I wish that we didn't have to do, but it definitely happened. So Dan, did you win this event?
I did not, which in hindsight, I'm upset about. So I'm very proud of my good friend Nick Hine, because he went into Go Ruck knowing, I think he was in 11th, maybe even 12th, but he was like, I'm not going to make the finals unless I like smoke this event. He went a couple heats before me. he got like 34.8 or like
Wow.
high 34s. Yeah, he smoked it. And I was very proud of him in the moment. But I remember that was going to be like, this is the one event that I know I can win. And I almost never go into any competition or event thinking that. It's just like, I know what I can do. It's probably good enough to win, but whatever. And then I was in the last heat. It was the top 4 because this is the before we go into the finals. So it's Emmanuel, myself, Johnny Alimo, and Brandon Burley. I beat everybody in my heat, and then I'm walking off, and they tell me the time, and I was like, "Sweet, did I win?" And they're like, "No, somebody got 34," and I was like, "Damn it, Nick!" but Nick earned his spot into the finals, and I was really proud of him because it's also that's not like the Go Ruck medley isn't really something that I don't think any of us, including Nick, because I've talked to him about this, that wasn't something that someone thought he was going to win. That's like because he's very strong and he moves pretty well, but like that's just not the type of event that we would have expected him to win. But he really pulled it out and showed some heart, and he won that event, beat me by like half a second. But I love that event. Like it sucks, don't get me wrong. It's not like it's an easy event for me, but it's easy to set up, especially at my gym, and just put the empty sled on one side, carry the sandbags 20 feet, put my backpack on, and go for an adventure.
Did training feel similar to competition?
Oh no, training was way harder than the competition, apparently.
All right.
I need to reweigh my bags. I mean, obviously adrenaline's always a factor. I would assume that OSG weighed their bags. And maybe it could be some that those bags are just easier to handle because I just trained on regular Cerberus bags the whole time. I know some people train on Atlas stones and actual Husafel stones. I just trained bags, but practicing both vertically for like a shorter or like a smaller hold and horizontally for a bigger hold. And then when I did warm-ups, all I practiced on is make sure the pick felt like comfortable with the weight. I didn't move with it because I knew I could, because I trained 320 for the Husafel stone or bag, which is what was supposed to be our comp weight. We ended up doing 300. So like I didn't go up to that weight. I just wanted to see in warm-ups to make sure like how I was going to grip it. But I think I rode an Atlas stone, the Atlas bags, the Go Ruck bags, like once or twice, picked up the H stone just to make sure I could grip it fine, and then walked out there. Because like,
and then so you end up second in the event.
Second. It was like low 35.
Nice. So you almost had Nicholas Hine. So
yeah, it's like he beat me by like half a second.
Next time they do a Go Ruck event, right?
Yeah.
You know what? This is the one event where I think James Deffenbach convinced me to do OSG because of this event, because he said that I could do really well against the heavies. So I was looking forward to the event to make up really good points. So of course I'll kind of go into it. So I don't know if this had any factor, but the getting the bag was, I was a little nervous getting the bag on, so I was a little overzealous. So I put the strap on. There was really, I don't know. At that time, I was second to last heat to go of the day. There wasn't really a handler back, so one like the Masters was helping me, and I put the bag on, and I really stood up and launched it, and the whole 120 pounds hit me in the back of the head. So I had a nice little kind of brain shake before the actual piece. And I'm not sure if I originally I thought that's what I ended up blocking out picking up the ball because I just dropped it in the middle, and people are like, why? The announcer's like, why is he dropping in the middle? The sled's over there. So I went out, and I guess Wes Stravinsky also had the similar experience. So originally I thought I was from hitting the back of the head. I think looking back at it, it could have been maybe some over fatigue from the deadlift going into that event kind of undertrained a little bit, because I put the most time into it, but it was also, I always had it at the end of my workouts when I didn't want to do it. So I think I could have done a few more runs. So I think that's just complacency on my end. So kind of my fault. But originally after that event, I thought I blew it because I only got the bag over, and then I flipped the Husafel bag a couple times, and then trying to pick up the Husafel bag, my brachialis was kind of screaming. So that was a little tough. So I thought I blew at the finals. So, and then my little buddy Jerry came over, and told me I got ninth. So
Nice.
I still had crazy that I still had a nice little lead, but that might have kind of pushed me out of contention. But the finals was originally kind of the goal that I wanted to do. But I was actually looking forward to the Go Ruck. Actually, I was looking for the Go Ruck. Then afterwards, now I feel like I hate that event more than sandbags. So so figure that. Even though I was the poster boy this year for sandbags, can you believe that, Dan?
I'm proud of you. You've come a long way.
Thank you, but still much long way to go. Sandbag throws. So I thought this was gonna be your event to win or your event to do really well.
Yep.
So tell me about it.
I mean, I still got second. I think Brandon Burley and I are the only ones that got the 55 bag. I believe that's true. I know I got second in it, but I think it's just because Brandon got 55. He went first. Which is funny because the only time I missed the 55 in training was if like I just tried to rush it and my trajectory was off. So I was pretty confident. The bags, I think what probably slowed me down a little bit is the bags were farther away. And even though I trained with the bags being farther from the post at varying distances, like I didn't always do the same one. I trained it. I think they were just far enough away that it still messed with my like my back step, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And so the first time I threw 55, I think probably would have been good because I missed it the first time. I was just a little far away. And so I got it. I looked over, saw that Emmanuel was on the last bag as well. I had no idea if he had beat me to the last bag. But I was like, okay. So I was like, you probably got one more good throw in you. So make it count. So I glanced over, I looked back, I take a deep breath, then I grabbed it and threw it, and it just creeped right on over. Which was nice. And that's like the only event that I celebrated super hard for. Mostly because when I threw it, I was like, that's not going over. It did not feel like a good throw. And then like I watched it and then it just snuck over and I was like, holy shit, that was awesome. But and then I found out that Emmanuel did beat me to the last bag. So if I wouldn't have got that, he would have beat me on that event.
Wow.
But yeah, that was another one. I thought I was gonna win it. Just because training on that had been going so well.
So when are you finishing?
Time wise?
No, what place wise?
Second. Second on bags. So that had me going into stones with a 4-point lead on second.
So who won the event? Was it Burley?
Burley, yeah.
Burley, another event winner. So stones, I was super proud of you. You had of course a great run, but tell us about it.
So going into stones, even with a 4-point lead, I was like still super nervous just because, and I said this on that little post-match interview thing that OSG just posted the other day of like, I've lost so many, first place positions because of stones. So as soon as I finished bags, like everybody was like, that's awesome. You have a 4-point lead. Like it's in the bag. And I was like, no, it's not in the bag. I was like, I still have to do really well on stones. I was like, I'm not going to win stones. I was like, we got some incredible stone loaders in this. Like, Emmanuel's a great stone loader. Jeff is obviously, Alex Sukip lied and said that he didn't train stones at all. And then he got second on the stones. And he technically was the first 105 to load the 400 stone at OSG. And so I'm just like, oh man. And especially when he went first and he loaded it, I was like, I'm gonna have to do so well. Like I can't make a mistake.
What did you do to calm your nerves and to focus?
Well, so before we got in the queue to like go out there, I was watching videos of me loading stones because my prep for this particular comp, stone wise, was very good. And like I remember I did not weight PRs because it's not for max weight. So it's not like I was loading 450 stones or anything, but like my speed I was able to train at Be Strong Gym here in Kentucky for on Saturdays for stones. He's got a really good stone setup. And so it was just like, I was just watching videos of like, you do know what you do. Like, you know what to do. You know how to win this event. or you know how to, you know, do what you have to do. I knew the 375 wasn't going to be an issue. I didn't think I was going to have to load the 400, and I knew I didn't have to win the event. I just had to do basically a top 4 performance. And so I did that and just kind of pumped myself up, and not in the same way that people might think. The way I pump myself up is actually trying to convince myself that I can do something, which for people who don't know me probably think that's a crazy thing because I just won a world title. But my self-esteem sometimes is incredibly low. So like trying to convince myself that like you are good enough to do this was the biggest aspect. And then so fast forward to when we're in the queue, all of those thoughts kind of go out because I do a lot of like training and psychological preparation for like how to get into the zone.
What's that? Tell us.
I'm not gonna give all my secrets away, but like,
all right, give one secret.
But and it's also not like it's not something that just happens. Like there's a lot of things I do in training, because you can't recreate a competition every time you train, right? Like there's really the only thing like a competition is the competition itself, and even within that, every competition is different. There's always different factors. So what you can do is teach yourself how to adapt and react to external stimuli, whether they're negative or positive, in the same way all the time. So I do little stuff. I won't go into a lot of detail for some of the more secretive stuff I do, but like even stuff like training to music that you don't like sounds silly, right? But like some people,
yeah, it sounds really silly.
yeah, no. Well, so let me explain why. So like some people, even in warm-ups, like they can't even warm up without their headphones on, right?
Okay.
And that's like something, and I mean, listening to pump up music with like heavy beats per minute and all that, or like high beats per minute, it gets your heart rate up, it gets you excited, it gets you pumped up. Like that is true. But if that's the only thing you're relying on, or like you can't perform without that, now it's just a liability. Same with pre-workout or any other stimulants. This whole prep, I stopped using stimulants. I didn't use any stimulants. Well, aside from caffeine. I did take caffeine, but like no beta alanine, no pre-workout, just caffeine. One, my workouts, I don't crash in them anymore. But also like it got to a point where I don't need pre-workout was like something that I was just reliant on. It was another dependency thing. So if I couldn't get the right pre-workout or I ran out, that's a whole other like problem. Same thing with the music. Oh, I hate this song. Like, how am I going to perform to this song? Like, I hate it. That's all. You're focusing on everything except the task on hand, which in this particular case was stones. So like you have to train outside of the competition environment on how to deal with external factors that aren't ideal, because there's never going to be ideal. Throwing bags or loading stones at OSG on the main stage or whatever is not going to be like blasting your favorite song with your friends, loading stones in your gym where everybody's feeling great because it's Saturday. You know what I mean? But since you can't recreate that, you have to just train your body to be in mind to respond and be able to focus in the same way, regardless of what's happening around you. And so that's kind of the culminating event there for stones, is like, did some of my breathing exercises that I do, and it kind of just like everything stops, the whistle blows, and then I just like blacked out because I trained what to do. I knew what to do. My body knew what to do. My mind knew what to do. It was all about focusing and getting into that, like that state of letting my body and mind just do what it already did. I didn't try anything new on the stone platform. You know what I mean? I didn't try a new technique. I didn't try to go faster than I had gone in training. I did exactly what I needed to do. And in fact, I was only 1 second off from my best time in training at comp weight. So I think I got third on stones. And then you can tell by my interview immediately after that, I was just in shock. I mean, I feel like that's acceptable.
You seal the deal, but you're still not telling your secrets, but it's okay. Keep your secrets.
I'm still competing.
But I think just, of course, kind of after you finished, it was just, I think you ended up winning by 10 points, was a huge margin, a whole event, which is, again, this was made it as a solid contest. So it was pretty much 5 great events, and of course one event, but you still executed probably to the best that you were kind of mentioning. So overall, a great package and a great win for Mr. Daniel Hughes. But should we go to the history board of all of everybody? So I'm a little bit of a strongman historian per se. So ta-da! 2023, Dan Hughes, Emmanuel Pascari, Jeff Lee. Last year was Andrew Clayton, Dan Hughes, Nicholas Hine. Myself in 2021, Chad Curry and Justin Loy. So no competition 2020. But I also wanted to kind of bring up, I think a lot of people don't really know the history of the 105 kilos. So the first one on record that I could find from talking and from looking on the internet in the interwebs. So Jane Harkakulian from I think that's Sweden, was of course the first 3-time winner of any 105 kilos. So I'm not sure what the first 3 were, just because I was a little confused. But after 2007 or after 2006 it was all SCL. So a lot of times you would see SCL. So Vitaly Gerzimov in that, again, in those late 2000s, where it was the guy to beat. But you start seeing this other guy named Marius Rosenthal who keeps appearing throughout this, and he kept competing throughout. So he was actually a great laughing competitor. I got a chance to compete with him in 2016. Ben Kelsey was probably one of the more stacked 105s ever. He had great legs. He ended up making it to World's Strongest Man, just like Darren Sadler. And he was actually a firefighter. I don't know if you knew that, but he was very talented. So if you guys go to my YouTube and go to past 105 competitions, I have on there the 2013 Giants Live, and it's commentated by none other than Colin Bryce. And that's a great production. That was in the Ukraine. We had our fellow buds of Sean DeMarinis and Johnny Wojcicki over there. So that's a good one. But Ben Kelsey is one of those solid competitors. So I couldn't find one for 2014. 2015, you had Ben Kelsey. So this was in Sweden. So Sean DeMarinis ended up going there, but he ended up going there with a torn bicep. So I don't think he didn't end up competing. Zach McCarley was also there, but he ended up winning the 90-kilo World's Strongest Man at that time. Vladimir Reshka is something that pops up a lot on here. He was a great competitor, and I personally got to compete with him about 3 or 4 times. So he was a great individual. So after 2015 is when kind of OSG Giants Live started kind of really taking over. You see Kevin Ferris there winning in 2016. I think at the time that was no fault of his own. He just won USS Nationals and didn't really know where all the great competitors are. He just got the invite from Willie to go to Sweden and go compete out there. But I wish he competed in the 2016 show. I don't think he was going to beat Sean DeMarinis. I think he probably would have beat me. But Sean DeMarinis had a great package. I think the grip event was what kept him from winning the contest versus Marcin Senwicki, who again was also another great competitor who, outside of winning World's Strongest Man, podium twice at World's Strongest Man 105 kilo. So after then, the SCL still held competitions, but OSG was starting to kind of take over in terms of the World's Strongest Man title. You see Mikko Anala kind of popping up there a couple times. So he actually showed up at the OSG as well. So he won SCL 2021 World's Strongest Man. Then in 2021, later that year, he came, but he ended up coming with a kind of a bad bicep. So he only took 10th that year, but maybe with a little more healthy, we could have seen a little stronger competition from him. But of course, you see there's a lot of 2-time champions, a lot of 3-time champions, or 1 3-time champion. So of course, the 4-time champions being Vitaly, Ben Kelsey, Andrew Clayton, Anthony Furman. So will Dan Hughes be the next 2-time champion? I think that's to be determined. Yeah, so
probably.
So that would be a pretty good conversation. I know, of course, you have Jane in there. And again, that's either Sweden or Norway. So in the comments, you guys can tell me. And then also in the comments, if you guys have any history that I'm missing about the 105 kilo World's Strongest Man, please let me know. But that is kind of a little bit of kind of the outlook from what I've seen. So I think it's important to kind of track all this, because right now you kind of see there's always been, actually, is that 19, 20 years worth of World's Strongest. No, but you had some skips in there. So we have somewhere between 17 and 18 years worth of World's Strongest Man competition. So
Am I
again,
the only person to go from second to first?
for the year, well, you see Darren Sadler in
Oh
2005.
yeah, never mind. Darren's down there. Yeah, that's right.
I personally went from second to first, but from 2017 to 2021. So
Yeah.
so I had a few years in between my wins. I think Sean DeMarinis was probably the strongest individuals to never win. I think he just never came up.
Yeah.
Into
Well, he only did
shape.
what, 2?
He only did 2, correct.
Yeah.
And then there's one year where he won, but he just didn't really want to qualify for OSG, so he didn't invite. But then Len ended up saying he regretted not having Sean there because if you want to have World's Strongest Man, you got to have the best. But Sean was all, as much as I love Mr. Sean, he's also kind of per se, he was really strong in his good events, but he was okay. He was decent at his other events. He wasn't as I would say good across the board like someone like maybe a Clayton, who's really good at every event, especially on the 105 kilo level. So there you have the history. So again, let me know if there's anything that I'm missing there, and then of course I'll keep updating this list as the 105 kilo historian. But please visit my YouTube page to look at all those past competitions where I try to keep all of them in one playlist. So observations for OSG. We're talking a little bit off air, but the first one I'll say, and then we can go back and forth. Was Rano Heinla, who of course went in the Masters, but I never saw Rano warm up. Dan says he saw Rano warm up, but
I saw him like specifically the deadlift and the go ruck. All I saw him do was just like the first weight of the comp weight for the deadlift. Like he just walked up and just pulled whatever 635 or whatever it was, and he was just like, "That's good." And then for the go ruck, I saw him just grab one of the heavy bags, take a couple steps with it, and I was like,
but
so older than me, and I have to warm up a lot more than that.
So someone was saying, like, I was like, I haven't seen Rano warm up. He's like, yeah, he just eats to warm up. So but I was in the opens and I was like looking for him every time because he was in the lead. I was really curious how he was going to do. But that other individual, and make sure I didn't butcher his name, so I have it up here. Johan Espen was pushing him all the time, and Ronald didn't win until the last event. So, of course, that was a great contest by them. What was your observations? Who really stood out to you as either a great competitor, funny competitor, well-dressed competitor, smelly competitor, intelligent competitor?
I'm all of them. No, I mean, I love the 105 class as it is right now. Like, the warm-up area is such a blast. And even Nat mentioned that, like, there didn't seem, at least from my perception and like Nat's perception being my coach down there with me, it's just like, it wasn't stressful. There's no one that you're just like, that guy's trying to get in my head. Like, we're all friendly, especially all of us in like the top 10, 12, 15. Like, we're all just nice to each other. Even Emmanuel, that was the first time Emmanuel and I met. And like, we just kind of walked up to each other. We weren't standoffish, introduced, like, hey, nice to finally meet you in person. And it was just friendly. Like, I don't know. It was always fun. The warm-up area is probably the most fun part of competing at shows like this because I get to see all the people I don't see.
So for Emmanuel, do you think for someone that goes by Dr. Death, he was too nice?
Yeah, I don't know if he does it intentionally, but I think his name's a misnomer because he's just like a super nice, genuine guy. At least in my experience with him, I don't have a bad thing to say about him. He was a very good competitor. He was very nice. I think at first we were both kind of sizing each other up, not from an athletic standpoint, because I think our reputations, especially our reputations preceded us. But like, we were both kind of like, is this guy going to be an asshole or not? But I mean, by the end of it, I mean, that's why I went and hugged him after Stones before I started celebrating. Like,
no, you just wanted to touch another guy.
Well,
I'm sorry. I've been guilty of that. I've been guilty of that too.
But no, I mean, like, I love it. And Brandon Burley, because of the first time we competed each other, he goes around and tells everybody I'm a liar, and which is a joke that we have, and he's always chirping at me. I'm chirping back. Isaac May's always chirping with him.
Oh, we forgot to add Isaac into our
Yeah, he's in
no,
there.
we did mention Isaac. Yes.
Yeah, we did. But no, I mean, there was no like big incidents that I can remember anyway, or like at least negative.
About other weight classes. Anything you talk to any of the heavies? Talk to any of the ladies?
I mean, there's
lightweight
always
men?
Derek Owens is always screaming at OSG.
So
He's always
you know,
screaming. But
oh, go ahead. Sorry, you go first.
I mean, there's that. But I mean, I'm joking with him about that anyway. But not really.
But I said so on the Derek Owens point, I was saying that he was he made the most of that opportunity of getting to the final.
Did.
So
That was hilarious watching him come down. He was in the warm-up area, and he had already won the bags before I realized what had happened, because I saw him in the warm-up area in his boots and his jeans or whatever. He had like a Leatherman and like a pocket knife in and all that, and he just grabs a bag and throws it and then storms off. And I was like, is he mad that he's like, clearly he's not competing today? So like, I don't know, maybe he's mad about that. And then we're in the queue and he's ahead of us, and I watch him just smoke the bags in jeans and boots, and I'm like, what the hell is happening right now?
But he won both events in the finals. I think he won the press medley. So I think
he did. He won the press medley.
If he cleans up, I think he could be a future champion. But on the talking about the 90s, of course, I loved seeing the battle between Davis and McNee the whole weekend. And of course, congratulations on McNee on kind of pulling it, especially beating the former champion. That's never easy, but that's kind of twice that's happened, where the former champion is won with Nikolai Myers in 2021 and then took second to Tyler Davis, and then this year Tyler Davis, being the former champion, took second to the new one. So I love seeing kind of all these competitive guys. So potentially you could see three yet, and you had Nurmu there. So next year you could maybe see 4 former champions head into World's Strongest Man 90 kilos. So that's pretty exciting. I thought Chris
to move up.
Yeah, that's too. But speaking of moving up, so I was very proud of my buddy Andrew Hanus. I think he took 7th in the 90 kilos. So he did something similar to me, jumping up and making the finals. So I thought that was pretty cool. So he's made the finals in 2 different weight classes, just like myself. I think I'm the first 105 to not to toot my own toot or horn, first 105 to make the finals since Clayton going to the Open. So I think in the future there's going to be more guys like that. I don't see guys like Sokup and Alimo staying at 105. They're just massive. They're taller than me.
They are bigger.
They're massive. So I think those guys are probably going to be Opens one day, and they're probably going to be in the OSG finals. So that's not going to stay long. So I was saying, I forget if I mentioned, but Chris Harper. So he's the 80 kilo guy. I was TikTok friends with him for a while. And I was watching his training. I'm like, this guy has a crazy press. And then I was watching all his accolades, and he ended up beating his fellow Scottish teammate in Dean McVie. And of course, Dean is a great competitor. But Chris Harper, being a young kid, kind of newish to the sport, newish, but I know he's been, I think, at least competing for a few years. But that was a great win by him. Aaron Murray over Nadia was, I think, pretty nuts, because I think Nadia came out started really hot. Thing winning maybe 2 or 3 of the first events. And sometimes when you win at least half the contest, you have a good chance of winning the whole show. So Aaron Murray keeping that kind of focus in order to win and finish strong was huge.
That was also really exciting to watch them and Sam compete. They were like always in the final heat. That was really fun to watch.
If there's any place to be, you always want to be in the final heat. That's one thing I always recommend. But that's easier said than done. Our boy Jeffrey Lee going from 7th to 8th to 3rd and squeezing on a podium. I knew Jeff was going to win the stones. That's his thing.
Yeah, so did I.
Jeff just needs to go for the record one day and claim that for himself. But
Yep.
I was really proud of Jeffy, especially on the sandbags throws. The back and forth between Rebecca Roberts and Lucy Underdown. So they've been going back and forth every year this year. So it's almost turning into a nice rivalry. But even though they're greater friends, they are fierce competitors. So of course, congratulations to Rebecca Roberts. And then talking about the opens a little bit, Marcus Crowder has always, everybody was like, of course, Crowder is very strong, but I'm glad he got his chance. But I think he had that caliber to be at these big shows years ago. He took second to Bobby Thompson at the Arnold Amateur. So, but I've personally been competing with Crowder since 2017. So this is actually my fourth heavyweight contest. My first one as being a real open, but I did 3 at nationals and 1 nationals and 2 Arnold Ams with him. And then as a 105 kilo, I competed alongside with him in 2 other contests. So I've been there watching Crowder throughout his years. And I always thought he's someone that could be at those big stages. So I'm so excited to see him at the Giants Live, and no one else deserved it more than Mr. Crowder Chowder. I think first time I ever met him, I go, "Hey, Marcus Crowder," or is it Marcus Chowder? And he looked at me and then just walked away. So
you're like, wow, this is the beginning of a wonderful friendship.
Yeah, exactly. And then my last note was also Team Canada representing in the heavyweight. So you had Wes Derminski, you had Joey Lavallee, and then you had James Jeffers. Just Team Canada coming out strong. So Wes Derminski is someone that's I was keeping an eye on. I thought he was also good. He was going to do really well. If my OSG preview ever comes out, that I say all 3 of those guys, those are the guys to look out for, and all 3 of them made the finals. So I thought just those guys potentially could be the 3. I guess back in 2022, when Mitch got the invite after Ronald Heinle got the word, I guess Wes Derminski was also in the conversation to get that chance to Worlds. So I think he again probably lit a fire when he didn't get the chance to go to Worlds. So I think but now we're going to see him at Giants. He's a great competitor, and I think he's going to keep going. But if you look at his strongman archives, he usually takes either second or third at the last 6-7 contests he's done. So and Canada and the Canadian contest, for you guys that don't know, are some of the heaviest contests because they're run by none other than JF Carone.
Very strong lifter.
Yeah. So those are all my OSG observations and fun stuff. So anything you want to
add? No, I actually think, there was no hurricane this year, so it was pretty much every aspect was a huge improvement from last year.
Or blizzard. In 2018 there was a blizzard. Which
yeah. See, that last year was my first OSG, and it was the hurricane. So that's what that's my reference point. But no, I think it was a great, very well run show. I'm sure there were issues that came up. I wasn't made aware by any of them. They didn't affect me, and to my knowledge, they didn't affect any of my other fellow athletes. So I know there's some judging contention for some of the other classes. I don't know much about that because I don't think the 105s had anything to do with it. So, it's when I'm competing, all I really care about is myself and at most just my class. So if
there's another 105, I don't care.
Yeah, well, I only have so much bandwidth, so it's not a matter of I cheer for other people, especially if I'm there or if I know other athletes. I'll cheer for them, but I'm not following all that. I'm not rewatching their videos.
I'm a fan of Strongman, Dan. All right?
I am a fan of Strongman too, but I also have to focus on winning.
No, you gotta do both. Dan, what's next for you? What are your thoughts and plans, and what can you tell the people to expect and be excited for? Are you gonna make a YouTube page?
A YouTube page? Yeah, I'm on it. This is my YouTube page now.
No, this is my YouTube page.
It's our YouTube page.
All right, fine.
I don't know. Competition wise, everything kind of depends on what my schedule is. I got another semester of school. I'm not sure when the Fire Academy is going to start yet. So there's just a lot of stuff that I don't want to get set on a competition date and then have to cancel it. So right now, no particular competition's picked, and it's for no other reason than just I got to wait on some other scheduling conflict issues to be resolved, or at least identify what they are. So for now, it's just to continue to get back into training. Get
Have
as strong
you
as
been
possible.
have you been approached for world's strongest or America's strongest state?
I did actually by a couple people, but that was months ago. And at the time, I thought the Fire Academy was starting in January, and it's not. So I don't know what. That's actually a good point. I forgot about that. I ruled that out because I think a lot of the competition's in January, right?
So the world's strongest man, 105 kilo, is too good for America's strongest state.
Oh my gosh, that's not what I said at all. I thought I was the Cincinnati Fire Department or Fire Academy is like 7.5 months. So, and it's like pretty involved. So like I'm not gonna try and pretend like I can train at the same level while I'm balancing that, and that would obviously take priority. So it just depends on when that's gonna start because it's not starting in January anymore.
Hey, did you ever do that? Were you gonna go for like a heavy axle press or barbell press? Did you run that?
Yeah, I think I'm doing it tomorrow.
Oh, we tell us about that.
I mean, I'm hoping for like 375, 365.
For
But
clean press.
I'm probably just gonna do it off blocks because it doesn't really mean anything regardless. I'm not training for a comp. Just do it for fun. So I'll probably just do it off blocks.
Nice. Well, that'll be exciting. So check out for that. So 2 weeks after the competition. So you should be CNS should be pretty ready. You should be pretty healthy. But that's all I have for you, Dan. I think we did hour 15. I want to take up too much of your night. But make sure you follow Dan on Instagram. He's going to have a YouTube page one day, so follow him on that. He does have a TikTok page too, so I'll list it below. Are you still posting on your TikTok page?
I haven't, but I need to.
All right. Well, I'll post it below so you can gain some traction, and you can also post it. It's
Thank
all
you.
about you gotta get out there, and the people need to know about Dan Hughes. So, Dan, before we get to the very end, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, notification bell, so you know when the other podcast and cool vlogs and all my cool videos come out. With try and do more instructional videos in 2024. But Dan, I'm going to leave you with the last piece as advice. So what do you want to leave the listeners?
Oh man, I hate this question. I know it's always coming and I always forget the answer. I don't know. Prioritize being kind to other people over being good at your craft. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't focus on being good at your craft. But like I said, I think I said it in one of the interviews, next year somebody's got to win this competition. It might be me, it might be somebody else. And so while no one can take my title away from me, years from now, the last thing when somebody mentions my name, the first thing that comes to mind isn't going to be Dan Hughes, the 2023 World's Strongest Man, 105 under 105 kilo. They're just going to think about the last interaction they had with me. And I think if more people prioritize that, there'll be less assholes.
So what Dan was saying is smother them with kindness so they choke on it and die. The end.